Alrighty, folks, I have been looking forward to this discussion for 5 days. Again, if you don't know who this gentleman is, Taylor, LifeGoal Investments, 12-year Wall Street veteran, works with the top 1% of the 1% across the globe. And I've got to ask him one question and one question only. Taylor, does the word uncertainty that is being thrown around like it is the word of the year guarantee a recession in very short order?
I love the use of unprecedented. The rate of the use of the word unprecedented has never been more unprecedented. No, you're 100% right though. People right now are as uncertain. CEOs, more importantly, are as uncertain as they've ever been. They just don't know which direction tariffs are going. They don't know whether their product is going to be subject to it, whether it's not, whether the country they're exporting to is going to hit them with a tariff, or if they're not. So it certainly is causing a logjam. I don't think that we are in a foregone conclusion state that a recession is coming, but I think that the longer we continue to play this tariff battle, to state the obvious, the more and more likely a recession actually ensues.
Yeah, because when I step back and look at this, and again, I think we've had this conversation, but let's do it again. When I look at the complex U.S. economy and try to make it as simple as possible, there are only 3 legs of our economy, and that these are legs that build GDP. One is government, right? State, federal, all of that. I think it's fair to say that that is going down, right? Spending is going down. I don't think that's shocking to anyone.
Nothing up for debate there.
Yeah, but number 2 is the new twist, right? Because if you step back and you think about the Trump bump or Trump pump, whatever you want to call it, after the election and after inauguration, it is my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, that CEOs generally got very positive. Deregulation, new tax structure. I actually shared the fact that several of the CEOs I know in my personal network threw away their 2025 plan and built a new, right? Went from very much conservative, keep the doors open to, let's go. And I think what's happened because of this mass rollout all at once, chaotic communication, on, off, they're all uncertain. So there's the second leg of the stool that I thought would be net positive that I think is very quickly going negative. I don't know any CEOs that are making any moves or hiring any capital investments. They're like, dude, I don't know.
Right.
And they're just pulling back. So I think the second leg of the stool is going to go negative. And that goes negative fast.
Correct.
Right? They can stop spending like that.
Correct. Well, the first 2 legs of the stool go negative fast, right?
Yeah.
We're making very quick moves on government, lack of government spending. We're going from 7% GDP deficit, budget deficit to 3% like that. And Elon, is obviously the one pulling the strings there.
Yeah. And then we get to the third leg, which is obviously, it is the largest leg, arguably 65, 68. Some people say 70%, whatever it is. It's the biggest leg, the consumer. And everyone I talk to is pulling back. And we just got some reports over the weekend about the wealthy canceling contracts on luxury homes. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh my gosh, because again, you got to remember, luxury homes are typically bought with cash.
Correct.
Right? They're not taking out 30-year loans.
Correct.
So if you have these people that are going, you know what, I'm going to keep that $2 million. I'm going to keep that powder dry. I got to imagine that spending is going down. And why is that important? Well, something else we learned in the last year is the top 10% are responsible for 50% of the discretionary spending. So if they're also pulling back, and you have it's just like, I don't know how we don't have a recession. It feels guaranteed to me.
Yeah. And so just anecdotally, we have a client who makes luxury homes. He owns a construction facility, and he had 3 in the past week cancel orders. And he said, typically it'll be sub 10%. He's like, it's not unnormal for some folks too, but 3 in 1 week, he took a step back and went, whoa. We need to now start to think about our bigger organization and how much we will see from a cancellation perspective. And guess what that does? That has a knock-on effect of his hiring. That has a knock-on effect of all the chain links that lead up to his business as well. So there's no doubt that this has frozen folks. But I will say, when you look at the consumer, now granted, all the information we get on the consumer is rearview mirror information. So take that with a massive grain of salt.
Massive grain of salt.
Massive grain of salt. but the consumer still is healthy from every bit of rear view looking data that we can see on a
Well,
month
let me
lag.
ask you this question. I'm sure you saw it on Friday. We had the ugliest consumer sentiment report that I
Mhm,
can remember on
mhm,
Friday.
mhm.
But a lot of that, to your point, is what they call soft data, right?
Yep.
It's forward looking, it's opinions, it's feelings, it's all this nonsense. How much credence do you give to the soft data versus hard data, i.e., like last week, CPI down at
Well,
2.4, core at
it
2.8?
I give way more credence to hard data than I do
Okay.
soft data. But the
Okay.
big line of delineation right now that you need to start to take the soft data more seriously is that the changes are so rapid that a month lag makes the end all be all world difference of it looking in the rearview mirror because consumer spending is still strong. But going forward, they're saying, I'm pulling in the reins. And what people say they do and their actual actions are two meaningfully different things. So
Very,
we'll
very
see
true.
if
Yeah.
they come into alignment. It's always funny to hear people talk about, hey, what do you think of the economy? Oh, the
Oh,
economy's crap. What
what
do
are
you think
you
about
doing?
your what do you think about your financial
I'm going
situation?
on a
Oh, I'm
trip to
great. I'm
Europe.
I'm good. I'm good. It's like, well, and when you're asking soft data, you're
Yeah.
asking what their broader thoughts are, what their political thoughts are, et
Yeah.
cetera. And
Definitely a
that
bias.
has
Yeah.
massive directional biases to it.
Well, we do get a very hard data report on Wednesday, but I again think this is a grain of salt. That'll be retail sales. I'm hearing a lot of folks kind of did pre-order, pre-purchase,
Yeah.
before the tariffs took effect. So I think any retail sales data, which again is expected by the experts to be strong, plus 1.2%. I think again it's like nothing matters if the
Yeah.
data is pre-Liberation Day. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing matters.
My niece is pushing hard right now for a new iPhone because hers is just old, and she caught on to this bug of, hey, I heard tariffs are coming. She's 14, and she's like, we should do it now. We should do it.
Yeah, you should do it now. That is
And my sister
awesome.
and brother-in-law are just like, oh my Lord.
That is
But that
funny.
is, I mean, that is absolutely happening. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it is for someone like yourself, and maybe you have a different interpretation of this than I do, but you and I read a lot about the
Oh
economy,
yeah.
far more. And
Yep.
this is not us patting ourselves on the back, but this is just what we do. So we
Mhm.
spend a lot more time reading and digesting. Um,
Yep.
I came away from this weekend going, I don't know what to think. So we get that there's going to be a reprieve on tariffs on certain things, i.e., stuff that Apple sells, i.e., some potential semiconductor stuff on Friday. And that's right after market close. And by the way, it looked like it leaked before market close because
Yeah,
the market
I saw that.
ripped into the close. So
Yeah.
highly
Somebody
suspect on
knew
that front.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. And then yesterday, Trump comes out on Air Force One and he said, semiconductor restrictions incoming, tariffs incoming. So it's like I literally don't
Yeah.
know what to make of it. It's very hard, and I have a very good friend of mine who's an elderly gentleman. Elderly is not fair, but he's in his 60s, and he has
Oh,
spent
dude, come on. Be kind. Be nice.
well,
More
elderly,
experience.
later 60s, a lot
Oh,
older
okay.
than me. Whatever. I'll get in trouble here. I'll stop putting my foot in my mouth. So he's a gentleman that's been around the markets for a long time. Let me put it that way.
There you go.
And he is a avid reader on economies. He came from Wall Street, but he's also very tied into the political scene. And he
Mm,
also is very rightward leaning.
okay.
So with all of that makeup, these are his thoughts. He said, regardless, like Trump, hate Trump, doesn't matter. Like tariffs, hate tariffs, doesn't matter. He said one thing that anybody can say, and this is his rightward leaning opinion, is that the messaging has been atrocious, was his word.
Oh,
And so with atrocious messaging, and what his comment was, what is our real end stated goal? And I
mhm.
think that what he wants out of this is more brass tacks, not a we're getting ripped off, here are the underlying things. And
Yeah.
here are the things that we're trying to correct. And I understand that our narrative right now is that tariffs are unfair, but it's really not just tariffs, right? So it's the knock-on regulations that don't come across in the actual tariff numbers. So, what are the restrictions for emissions on US cars going into Europe versus what are they for European built
Yeah.
cars? That's the
Right.
stuff. We need better tangible data on that for a broad American push of support behind tariffs, because I think right now the moderate Republicans are being lost. And I think that is something where if you get meaningful downside in people's pocketbooks, then that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't only think it's the moderate Republicans. It's probably the majority of independents as well, right? Which
Well,
is
they
really
went. Yeah, what I was getting at there is they went before the moderate
yes,
Republicans.
absolutely. You're losing you're losing the base. So I agree with your friend. This has been perhaps the worst rollout of any new strategy, and I've been around the block a while ever. And oh, by the way, they've got to clean up their communication on their team. Right? There's a
Right.
bunch of people that are talking and they're saying different things on the
Yes.
same freaking day.
On the same day from the same very tight cabinet members, very tight, that are exclusively focused on this one specific topic on tariffs.
Yeah, it is not helpful. And again, you have a very short window. Here's another thing that I think has to come. I think Trump has to find an off-ramp very quickly. And he tried that with the 90-day pause. And then it got all wacky with these exceptions. And again, it's back into this whole uncertainty thing. You just don't know what the hell is going on. It feels unplanned, unchaotic, a seat of the pants. You're one tweet away from news. That's not what you want the country feeling, right?
No.
You want, you got to show the plan. Maybe you don't want to show the plan, but maybe you should talk more concrete to your friend's opinion about what the in state looks like.
Yep.
And because if you lose everybody, the midterms are over, and we never get to tax cuts and deregulation.
Correct.
This could get so bad where Senate Republicans stand up and try to take the tariff back from the president, right? Declaring
you're already getting a little bit of that. You're already getting a little bit of that. Hey, you have 60 days are the bill that's being proposed, that this national emergency can only last for 60 days. And reality is, like, again, I'm not trying to be political here, but at the end of the day, it's like, are these national emergencies that we're dealing with right now? And maybe the answer is yes. Maybe the answer is we have defense things that are bleeding over. Potentially, that's certainly something that is national emergency oriented. But it's hard to make the argument that everything is.
I 100. Like, one of the things that's most obvious to me, and I said this 4 years ago, so it's like it's still as true then as it is now, and that's pharmaceuticals. The fact that we rely on foreign adversaries that don't like us and could turn it off in a second,
right,
is a national security risk.
Right.
There needs to be tariffs and incentives to build that shit here.
COVID taught us a lesson. COVID taught us a massive lesson. When all of a sudden global trade has to stop for supply chain issues, what have you, you need to have at least bare minimum things created in your own country in order to be sufficient on your own and not be reliant upon others, especially others that don't have the same agenda and might have agenda that is weakening the U.S.
Absolutely. So I want to go back to how this conversation started. I started with uncertainty guarantees a recession, which you're like, I'm not sure. But everything I hear you saying sounds like a recession is guaranteed, my friend. Do you want to change your opinion?
No, I don't. Just because the data is so strong coming into this, I do think that, like, listen, there are some problems. So if we revert now to kind of my area of the world of like the market and the investing side of things, right now, if you look at the analyst estimates on the street, they're still pricing in 11% earnings growth this year. Like,
well, we've laughed about that a lot.
You are out of your you're out of your effing mind if you think that we're getting 11% earnings growth. Like, that's just crazy talk. And so even if you take it back to flat, like let's think about the market, because the market's going to massively affect the economy as well. It's a push-pull, chicken or egg type scenario. So if you go from 11% earnings growth, and let's say they're going to be flat this year, so there's 11% cream off the top. Correct. The other problem with it is stock prices, the S&P 500 is predicated on two things. It's on earnings, which we can generally agree that the market is overly optimistic right now. Agreed. And then the second thing it's based on is multiple. And the multiple, price to earnings multiple, is just based on sentiment. Well, although it feels really nasty out there right now, the market trades at a 20-time multiple.
It's not that bad.
So if you take multiples down to average long-term, they're 17 times.
Okay.
17 times, 16.9 to be exact. But the long-term average is 17 times. So if you take 20 down to 17, that's an additional 15% off. So now you got 11 off on earnings, 15 off on multiple. You're down 26. And that's not a nasty, nasty environment. No. If you go into recession, earnings draw down Negative contraction of earnings is typically 18%. And
Well,
then
that's what I wanted to
multiples-
ask you. What's the multiple in a recession, please?
So that's earnings. Earnings go down. So my assumption on
negative.
that negative 26% was just going down to flat earnings.
Right.
If you actually enter a recession, the average over the long term has been 18% contraction in earnings.
Ooh.
And then add to that the multiple, because people get real scared during a recession, is 13 times.
Oh.
You want to know what that math equates to? I don't even want to
do.
say it.
I do. I want to
Negative
know.
53.
So that would take the S&P to what, like 3,800 or something?
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever. More than that. But again, I don't foresee that happening. I think that the tariff thing gets completely absolved very quickly if anything of that nature starts to come to fruition.
Yeah. So let's try to put some stuff as we wrap up video one, because we got another one coming. So do you think 30 days from now, the tariff nonsense is largely behind us and we're on to the growth part of the agenda, taxes and deregulations? Or do you think this goes longer than 30 days?
I don't see how it could be wrapped up in 30 days. If we're talking about, hey, we're going to take one-off rifle shots at people's actual underlying problems with our trade, 75 countries place phone calls to us. That means nothing. Okay. Now we go on USMCA, 2 countries, the Mexico-China or Mexico-Canada agreement took 18 months. That was 2 countries.
All right. So 90 days?
No.
Okay. Got it. All right. And the last thing, again, this is your world, and I wanted to ask you about this. I've told my audience the big things coming out of earnings season, because again, earnings season started, with the big banks on Friday, continuing, is my guess, I'd love your opinion on this, is a majority of companies actually pull guidance.
Yep.
Right.
How do you give guidance? How would you ever give guidance in this environment? Where again, if you're Apple on Friday, Tim Cook's doing victory laps going, thank God I made that $500 billion commitment to build things here in the US. And then all of a sudden Sunday rolls around. You're like, well, the semiconductor chips that we utilize in our products, maybe they are actually going into a tariff bucket. And what is that tariff bucket? Is it 20% or is there something else coming up? No, you can't. Walmart said, guidance coming back. Delta, guidance coming back. Like how?
Yeah. And again, you've been around a while, so companies only pull guidance very in mass, pretty rarely.
Correct.
That's got to be a net negative, right? Because you can't. Wall Street's kind of models break, right? You don't know earnings, you don't know multiple. It's got to be a net negative, I would guess.
I'm shocked at how well the market's holding up.
There you go, folks. A 12-year Wall Street veteran is shocked at how well the market is holding up. Taylor, where can people find you and reach out?
Don't shoot the messenger, okay? I'm just calling the cards as I see them. No, you can check us out. We're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're on TikTok, we're on all that. At LifeGoal Investments is our handle everywhere.
Do yourself a favor, and I mean this with every word of it. He does an amazing job in 60 seconds of covering material that probably should take 10 or 15 minutes. So go check him out on Instagram. You won't regret it. Later,
man. Thank you.